Today at Let's Talk Marketplace, we talk about
how Temu is conquering the European market and why the European e-commerce desperately needs to wake up to this.
Ed Sander, an expert analyst of the Chinese retail market, gives deep insights into the Temu business model and makes this an absolute must-listen episode.
Have fun listening.
Let's Talk Marketplace.
The Marketplace podcast with Ingrid Lommer and Valerie Dichtel.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk Marketplace. Today we have an episode that I personally have been looking forward to very much because we will demystify Temu for you today. Everyone's least favorite marketplace nightmare at the moment, I guess you could say. So if you listen to us today, you should be well prepared for future discussions on Temu. A lot of those will actually take place for us, from our perspective, next week on K5 conference. But when you listen to this, the K5 will already be over. So because we're pre-recording this episode, because Valerie and me will both be very busy at K5 next week. So there we are again, warping space and time while recording podcasts. Anyway, so Valerie, when this episode comes out, crazy event May and June will finally be over, or won't it? Or any more traveling for you on site?
Well, event traveling is over for now. That's true. The K5 conference always marks the end of spring and summer event season, this year actually, in the German e-commerce market. But we intend to bridge the gap between event summer and event fall with our own online events. So we will do a online webinar on the 31st of July. About the Q4 readiness in the marketplace logistics for fashion, lifestyle, and sports and beauty brands by Best Solutions. And we will talk about being ready for Q4, Cyber Week, Christmas, what you need to prepare. We will have a checklist for you and also talk about overall marketplace logistics, what's important. And maybe we will also start with our Marketplace Uni courses again. Let's see when we will start, but I got a lot of requests, and that's also what I'm asking all the brands and manufacturers on the events I'm attending these days. So what you need for, what you're looking for. And that's what we do right now, and also planning straight for September, October webinars, events. So that will be an interesting autumn as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we're making sure things won't get boring for you during the summer. So, but now let's turn to our topic of today and to today's guest. Valerie, why don't you introduce him? He's your find after all.
Gladly. With us today is Ed Sander, a specialist for an analyst of the Chinese retail market, who is part of all the relevant news sources in China. For example, Chinatalk and TechBuzz China. He also organizes study and inspiration tours to China for retailers with China Tech Trip. And he gave one of the most interesting and mind-blowing lectures at a SCORE conference in Zurich I attended, titled Temu Demystified. So, hello, incredible Ed. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Please stop doing that. I don't deal very well with flattery. So.
Welcome, Ed. We're really happy to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And before we get into demystifying Temu, let's introduce you a little bit more in detail, Ed. So what's your connection to China? How does one Dutchman become an expert for Chinese retail?
Well, always be careful when people call themselves experts on China. So because that's really not possible. I mean, you can know a lot about a certain specific bit of China, but basically my background with China is that I have worked in marketing, specifically in database marketing and CRM for quite a while. But I decided to go and do volunteering with my own skills, my own business skills in China for Chinese NGOs. And I've lived in the city of Xi'an from 2011 to 2013. And I had to live basically on 200 euros per month, which is roughly what the average income in that city was. So I got to live much more like a local than a very well-paid expat. So So that helped me to get a very different perspective on China. Now, at the same time, there was also lots of innovation coming through the Chinese internet, with Alibaba preparing for their IPO, and you had WeChat being launched. So I was right in the middle of that. And I basically kept following that. After I moved back to the Netherlands, I also met my wife in Xi'an. So we moved back together to the Netherlands. We set up Chinatalk here. She teaches Chinese culture and language through Chinatalk. And I started continuing my writings and also doing all kinds of lectures and keynotes through Chinatalk. And that eventually sort of build into the study tours that we started to do in 2018. And I started writing about 1.5 years ago for TechBuzz China, where we actually research a specific topic or a specific company very in depth. And we use a lot of Chinese tech media, Chinese language tech media, and expert interviews of our partner, 6 Degrees Intelligence. So we get a lot of insights that you normally won't find in the English press. That takes up about 50% of my time, but also keeping up with the news and doing the study tours and keynotes just basically makes me work like 996, as they say in China, from 9 in the morning to 9 in the evening, 6 days a week. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Cool.
So what would you say, Ed, is your USP insight about China? So where are you like really best in business? In which topic?
Yeah, I'm specifically focusing on the Chinese internet companies. So that's companies like Alibaba, Alibaba Group, actually, JD.com, Pinduoduo, Douyin, Kuaishou, Meituan. And lately also, of course, their cross-border initiatives like Shein, Temu, AliExpress, TikTok Shop. And I'm also specifically paying a lot of attention to instant retail, which is one of the biggest trends in China right now. So basically all kinds of different business models to get products from supermarkets, but also non-food stores to the consumer. And that's something that is really booming at the moment in China and is really interesting also because we could learn a lot from that. So that's basically the things that I focus on most.
Yeah, I think so too. We can I think in 2017 or 18, I was in Shanghai, also tried to, build up a TMall store with a TP partner in Shanghai. And I realized back then that they are so far forward. They are so forward compared to us in Germany. And still they are. So this gap became even bigger. So I'm really interested, and really looking forward to our talk today. But to round this tip up, Ed, give us a little fun fact about yourself, business or private, you can choose.
Okay. Well, there's probably a lot of weird facts about me, but I picked one that is China related. And that's that I have made more than 1,000 authentic Chinese dishes cooking at home.
Wow.
So it's probably also the reason why my wife is still with me, because I do Chinese cooking at home. So basically the story behind that is that when we moved back to the Netherlands here I don't know what the situation is in Germany, but in the Netherlands we have these Chinese, Indonesian restaurants, and the things that you can get there are tasty, but have nothing to do with the Chinese kitchen, as you probably know, Valerie.
Yeah.
So what I did is I actually bought a couple of cooking books by Fuxia Dunlop, and I put them very prominently close to our kitchen, hoping that my wife would see them and get inspired. But that never sort of happened. So I started trying them out. And these books are so good. And people, friends of mine that come to eat, they say, well, you cook so well, this Chinese food. I said, no, I'm just really good at following the instructions of the recipes. So, and when I did 50, then I thought, I cannot do 100. And that became 250 to 500. And eventually I set a goal for myself to do 1,000 different Chinese dishes. And after that, I was so fed up with it that I told my wife, we're only going to eat pasta for the rest of our lives. So
that's nice. Okay, I think we should have done that podcast, I don't know, live and have you cooking for us.
Yeah, come over.
Maybe next
Come over
time.
and eat.
Yeah, maybe next time. Anyway, okay, perfect. Ed, thanks for the introduction. Now I'm really looking forward to our discussion on Temu and maybe some discussion on Asian food as well. But before we do that, let's have a quick look at the news of last week and see what happened in the marketplace business. Newsflash. Okay, so the first one is pretty German orientated. The auto marketplace increases its fees significantly from August the 1st. The basic fat selling fee goes up from now around about 40 euros per month to 100 euros per month. But more importantly, the selling fees in some categories will also rise, varying between a +1% and +8%. The highest raises will take place in the categories technical accessories and DIY. And there's another fee raise planned for October. So not very good news for everyone selling on Otto. Valerie, what would you say?
Yeah, well, I heard that like there was like a lot echo about this. I mean, like they announced it this week on Tuesday, and like even 1 week later, this is already like set up. So like this is already valid from the 26th of June. And now you said like from August 1st, but
it will be August 1st, but on the 26th of June there will be new regulations for the sellers that they have to accept. So they all get this information on it and they have to accept it if they want to keep on selling on Otto.
Yeah, so I like this kind of like business communication relationship is one way, and I think like with a pretty short note. And yeah, I think price increases are okay if you communicate them well and in advance. And in advance is not 5 weeks before.
Yeah, that's true.
So you can prepare for it. You can adjust your products, your prices, whatever. Let me keep it like that. I think Otto is like not the the best bespoken marketplace right now, and this doesn't make it better.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Speaking of other bad news, especially for your main topic, Valerie, the KaDeWe Group has announced to pull out completely of e-commerce. So they discontinue any e-commerce activities. They close down their shop. The marketplace, of course, is off as well. 26 employees from the e-commerce department have already been let off. So that's it for KaDeWe Online. What do you think about that?
Well, it's, it's one solution like to like do this like insolvency restructuring. I'm not really surprised, to be very honest.
Yes.
So yeah, let's see how the other ones will go, because they're like within this bankruptcy, right? There are also other marketplaces involved. They're still keeping up and like are still going, but KaDeWe is like, it's close. But to be very honest, they were pretty picky in terms of marketplace business, so I don't think that there's like is a big loss for the marketplace industry.
Playing this over to you, Ed, because the KaDeWe Group was trying for a more high premium assortment, for a more luxury assortment, and is now insolvent in Germany. I read recently that a lot of European luxury retailers are doing pretty well in China. How important is that market for this retail segment?
Well, in China, luxury has always done quite well. But I think that even luxury might still be struggling a bit in China because the current economical developments in China have resulted in what they called a consumption downgrade. So most of the people are actually moving away from brands and buying non-branded articles. Having said that, of course, the luxury segment is for part of the population that won't really be influenced all that much by the economic downturns in China. So they're the people that are still making shitloads of money, so to speak. So maybe they're hurt less so than the brands are sort of more in the middle. So maybe that's the reason.
Interesting. Right. What else do I have? Something that is actually old news for all avid listeners of Let's Talk Marketplace or our newsletter subscribers, because you know about this already since March, of course. But now it's official. The So Plus Marketplace will open around about November. That's what So Plus CEO Geoffrey Lefebvre announced recently. So coming now. But as I say, we already reported about this in March. Okay, well, I think that were the main news. We're getting into summer, so news are getting sparse at the moment.
No, everyone is like, I think everyone is like just distracted by all the conferences.
Yeah,
every week.
possibly. We'll see what happens during the next week. Maybe there will be some announcement on K5. But for now, that's it with my news. So let's talk about Temu now.
Topic of the week.
So, some figures to start with, because this is going to be interesting. We have been looking at Temu and Shein over the last 5-6 months, I guess, here on Let's Talk Marketplace recently. But we have always been looking at it from a European point of view, as I say. So, some figures that I put together from that European point of view. So, for example, at the beginning of April, Temu placed some 8,000 new campaigns on Meta within 1 week. So far ahead of Shein and also even far further ahead of Amazon, for example. They only place about just a fraction of this ad volume, I would say. And also, Temu has only been active in the German market for a year. There has been a study recently by Pinduoduo, and they said that around about 1 in 4 Germans, for example, have already shopped with Temu. So that is saying Germans between 16 and 65. So this is not just a young people's game. This is interesting, obviously, for everyone. And if that is true, that would bring Temu very close to the market share of, for example, Otto. Yeah, and then there's, of course, the figures that the EU Commission published based on the Digital Markets Act, and they found that Temu and Shein together get some 180 million monthly EU users last year. That would be about the same amount as Amazon. Right. So these are the figures that have been circulating in the markets over the last month. And Ed, when I'm talking to European retail and e-commerce experts about Temu and Shein, I mostly get the sense of, bafflement regarding the raging success of the Chinese retailers. So why is the European e-commerce so perplexed about this? And should or could we have seen it coming much earlier?
Okay, they're not going to like what I'm going to say right now. I just did a keynote at BCom in Belgium, and I actually told people that they have not been paying attention. I mean, we know very little. We have very little attention for what is happening in the Chinese market. And very few people know about, if you talk about Alibaba, a lot of people immediately think of AliExpress, but very few people know a lot about Taobao and about TMall, etc., etc. Few people know about Pinduoduo or what JD is doing. So we've also always been very focused, of course, about what's happening in Silicon Valley, and have paid not enough attention to what's coming from China. And also, we've not been paying attention to why these things are happening now. I've been writing about Pinduoduo for a long time. I wrote about Temu because it was a Pinduoduo platform from as early as September 2022 when they launched. And I've continuously been writing about that. And especially for basically until December last year, nobody was interested. Also, if you would talk to event organizers and say, guys, this is happening, this is coming your way, this is going to be a real threat, they just said, oh, it's another AliExpress, another light in a box. It's not interesting. Half a year later, I'm doing 4 keynotes in 1 month and a bunch of podcasts like this one. And I basically speak to several journalists every week. So people have woken up, but really, they've not been paying attention. And that's why they are now sort of overwhelmed by what is happening.
Yeah, interesting. So maybe for us who have been sleeping, not paying attention.
Maybe not you guys, but like...
Actually, I do include myself, actually, because I know we have been, I think the first time Valerie helped me out here, we've been talking about Temu was when they entered the European market about a year ago. And this is when we first had it on the news with us, of course. And we were, okay, well, this is Temu. Okay, they belong to Pinduoduo. Of course, we knew that name. But from what I gathered from the industry and also from my own experience, was you looked at that new player and you went like, okay, that's like Alibaba, and Alibaba has been trying to enter the European market on and off again, and it wasn't. And we always got the sense that the Asian market is much more important for Alibaba, and Europe would be something like a nice add-on, but they're not really following through. But of course, this is a very different story with Temu, obviously. So maybe give us a short roundup. What has been happening in the last 5 years in China with these huge Chinese retail giants and their look on the European market that we have been missing?
Yeah, it's completely correct what you said, that Alibaba Group had AliExpress, but it's never been like a very important priority for them because they were so focused on what was happening in the domestic market. And in hindsight, they now, seeing the success of a Shein or a Temu, they realize that they actually dropped the ball, and they've started reorganizing since 2022, got in some new management, and they're trying again. And they are also copying a lot of the business model and the learnings from Temu. So they are also starting to become a bit more like Temu in certain aspects. What has been happening in the last 5 years in China? Well, of course, as everywhere else, they had 3 years of COVID. The country got locked down. There was not an enormous number of very big trends. There was a lot of government crackdown on anti-monopoly behavior among some of these platforms, especially Alibaba. So they were very busy with that. And by the time that the country opened again and the lockdowns were ended in December 2022, everybody thought, okay, this will be the time of what we call like revenge consumption, right? Everybody can come out again and they will start spending. But actually the opposite happened. There's problems in the real estate sector. People have sort of lost trust because of all of the arbitrary decision making that they've gone through for 3 years. So they're not sort of spending a lot. And this also was a great opportunity for Pinduoduo, which was already killing it in the Chinese market. But like I said, with the consumption downturn, people looking for less expensive goods, they only started growing and growing and growing at the expense of Alibaba and, well, specifically Alibaba. So if you look, for instance, a slide I showed at Score, and I will also show at K5, Alibaba had about 80% market share in 2013, and that will have shrunk to about 1/3 of the market in 2025. And they've lost this to Pinduoduo and to Douyin, which is basically the Chinese TikTok, because they have TikTok Shop, the version of that in China. So what has been happening more recently, specifically last year, is that platforms like JD and Alibaba realized the threat of Pinduoduo, and they've started to also focus more on low prices. So Alibaba has also started to move away from focus on the big brands and flagship stores on TMall and turning more traffic towards Taobao, because they can offer, they have a lot of merchants that can offer lower prices there. JD has also opened up their platform much wider to have more merchants with low prices. So everybody is sort of trying to be more like Pinduoduo at the moment in China. So that's probably the biggest thing that has been happening in the last 5 years.
And when we talk about Temu and Temu as a marketplace, how does that work right now? So we know, okay, we can order as end consumers at Temu, can I also sell my products as a brand, as a European brand on Temu, and sell it maybe to in Europe as well? Or how does that work right now? Or even does it make sense? Because we see also there's really low prices on Temu. Does it make sense overall to use Temu as a marketplace for us, or is it more we shall learn from it? So that would be great to get more insights.
Well, to first answer your question about Western brands selling on Temu, that's something that Temu would like to move towards. Temu, at the end of the day, in a couple of years, they want to be more like Amazon, but they will go through a couple of different business models before they arrive there. So they might already start looking for Western brands that want to sell on their platform. But currently, just like with AliExpress, there will be very few brands that are interested, because who wants to have their carefully built up brand next to a lot of cheap Chinese junk, right?
Yes.
That's why AliExpress also hasn't been very successful. Yeah. And for instance, in Spain, have started Miravia. To have sort of more like a TMall-like platform and not a Taobao-like platform. So then the question about a marketplace on Temu. Temu actually is not a marketplace as we know it. It has a very different model. The model that they started with, they call the fully managed or the consignment model. So it basically means that Temu is selling these things on behalf of the factories where these products come from. They're not a reseller, so they don't, like in the original Amazon model, they don't buy and resell things. They're also not a marketplace because the factories cannot run their own stores and determine their own pricing. So the way this model works is basically like this. You have the factory, because most of the middlemen have already been cut out because they cannot give the same low prices as the factories. You have Temu and you have the consumer. That's the three main parties involved here, of course. Then Pinduoduo already has contact with about 11 million factories that they use on the Pinduoduo platform in China.
Just a few ones, yeah.
Just a few. and what Temu does, they make a smaller selection of the factories that, according to them, can make export quality and can also produce products that Western consumers might be interested in. So then what they do is they invite, basically, it works two ways, of course. A factory can also say, can I sell on Temu? But in the beginning, mostly they invited some of these factories to give their lowest price quote for these products. If Temu agrees with these prices, then the factory ships their products to a Temu warehouse, but the factory remains owner of those products. So then Temu puts it on their website or on their app, and they start selling this product, and they determine the price. The factory has no say in what selling price Temu will be using. Then the consumer buys that online, then it gets shipped to the consumer through, especially in the beginning, through air shipment, like in big boxes, and those get sent to the local couriers. And the couriers unpack these boxes into separate individual packages for consumers. And if that works, if a product is very popular, which Temu, of course, has all of the dials that they can turn to make give a lot of traffic and sales to a product, then basically the factory will continue to supply that product. If it's not popular, then basically Temu will say to this manufacturer, okay, you can either pick up your goods or we'll scrap them, or you will start paying inventory costs. So that's basically how the model works. So it's not really a marketplace, but it's a consignment model, a fully managed model. Why do the factories do this? Why don't they just open up their own store on Amazon? Well, many of them have also an Amazon store. So that's why you find a lot of products on Amazon that you can also find on Temu. But there's also factories that have no experience in cross-border e-commerce. They have no staff that speak English. They have no staff that knows about Western consumption habits. So by simply having Temu select their products and do all of the sales for them on their behalf, the only thing that they need to do is what they are supposed to be best at, and that's making products. So that's basically the model that they started off with.
Okay, so and that's also like when I remember what I said last year, also when like Temu came, I think I also said like, yeah, that's like the next AliExpress. Who cares? Like, we'll come and we'll leave. But if you say like, okay, they are like changing constantly their business model to become a Amazon-like business, then that's much more interesting, because right now, as far as I understood, I can as the end consumer, I can buy a Temu. And like they have like much cheaper prices, because I mean, if they ship it via air and then like just distribute it here in small parcels, then then they can also meet those prices. Because I always wondered like, hey, okay, if I have like a product of like, let's say €5, right, from China with air freight, it coming here, I was like, how is this even possible, right?
Yeah.
Because even if I think about postal fees, right, like porto, and then I was like, okay, but if I have like already €3.90 porto, it's like, that's like insane in within Germany, not even talking about air freight and so on. So
how does this work? Huh?
Yeah, how does this work? Yeah.
Okay. So the thing is that there's a couple of things that are going on. First of all, if Temu sees that a product is very popular and it's supplied by factory A, and they know that another factory can make exactly the same product, then they will also invite multiple other factories to bid on the volume that Temu can create. So give lower prices. So this could mean that factory A already has its products in the Temu warehouse. And in this week, because this is something that happens on a weekly basis, factory B gives a lower price, then the sales of factory A will stop and the sales of factory B will start. The next week, the only thing that factory A can do is try to get under the price of factory B. Now, of course, this has a potential problem of the product quality going down, because manufacturers will try to lower their manufacturing costs, mostly by using cheaper raw materials. So to sort of balance that out, Temu also has a penalty system that if a customer complains, and you might not think so, but basically on Temu, they have a system that the customer is always right. Then the customer will either get their money back immediately, or will have to send back the goods and get their money back as soon as the return package has arrived in the return depot. And then the manufacturer has to pay 5 times the sales price, not his manufacturing sales price, but the consumer sales price, as a penalty. So they're trying to balance out low price and quality this way. And anybody that has ordered a lot of stuff on Temu will know that they haven't quite found the balance yet, because there's still too much low quality product. So that's one way how they pressure down the manufacturing price. Then, like I said, they determine the sales price. Now, what they do in the beginning is they heavily subsidize that. Now, if you talk about subsidies, people normally immediately start thinking about the Chinese government. But as a matter of fact, what Temu is doing is they are paying part of the price that they would need to sell it for if it would be profitable. So they subsidize these prices. The packaging costs and logistical costs are about €10 to get it to the consumer in Europe. So at the end of the day, they are still losing money. If you look at the results, the Temu results of last year, they had about a net or a loss of 27%. They are trying to bring this to 18% and be this year and be break even sometime next year. So how do they do that? So they are not making any money on these products at the moment, and the factories are making a little bit of margin still, if they're lucky. So what they're going to do is, as soon as people have built sort of the habit of buying on Temu because of the low prices, they will start raising the price bit by bit until you pay roughly the same as what you will pay on Shein as well, because Shein also has a marketplace. And what they're aiming for is a price that is about 70% of what you would buy it for on Amazon. What they also do at the same time is they will increase the minimum order value that you have to buy. So if you're a new customer, you will get free shipping, and it doesn't matter how many products you buy. But if you've been ordering a couple of times, you'll see that it's, for instance, €20. You have to buy at least €20. So that's how they slowly move towards profitability. A third thing that they will do is they have that fully managed model. But of course, as we discussed, the logistical costs of that are extremely high. So they are also allowing now certain manufacturers and merchants to also ship the goods, mostly by boat or maybe by train, which is now also possible with the Belt and Road Initiative. Ship it to the region of destination, put it in a warehouse there, and also arrange the logistic with local couriers. But Temu will still be the one that is selling and setting the price, but the manufacturer will get a bit more margin. But thereby, Temu will bring down their logistical costs at the same time. Now, the scary thing, the most scary thing about this is that, of course, if you sell everything and ship it by airplanes, then it has to fit in a small package. But if you actually ship from local warehouses in this new model, which is called the semi-managed model, in this new model, you can also start selling refrigerators. You can sell furniture. You can sell big, heavy bulky
products.
Stuff. So that's what Temu will be moving towards this year as well. So they have the fully managed, they have the semi-managed, and they want to move towards more like a model where they don't manage anything, and they have more like a marketplace model like Amazon. And there's probably then they keep these 3 different flavors that merchants can choose from based on their own situation. So that's basically what's going to happen.
That's an insane, unsustainable business model, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going for as a next question, because what I gather from people looking at what Temu is doing in Europe, I think a lot of e-commerce experts here are sort of hoping and waiting for the moment that Temu is going to run out of money. I mean, how much is Pinduoduo willing to invest in this? Because we have these huge logistic costs that they are producing, as you just explained. We have also a huge amount of marketing spend that they are pushing into it. And there were some reports last year, for example, that Temu has been decreasing their ad spend in several European countries. And just last week, I read that Temu is now giving customers an option for a slow delivery via land instead of air freight, also offering financial incentives, of course, and at the same time increasing the minimum order limits for air freight, as you just said. So is cost an issue for Temu, and are these hopes of European e-commerce participants that Pinduoduo might just run out of money any valid?
Well, again, I'm apologizing for bursting their bubble. So to start off with the question, how much is Pinduoduo willing to spend on this? And you actually have to realize why they are doing this. And they are doing this because in the domestic market in China, they basically cannot grow anymore as far as buying customers is concerned, because they already have more than 800 million Chinese people on Pinduoduo. And there's only about 1 billion Chinese people online. So it's very difficult to get that remaining 20%. And that's why they started Temu, because they want to grow faster than only in the Chinese market. Now, in the Chinese market, like I said, you have the consumption downgrade. So actually, they've been doing incredibly well in the last couple of years at the expenses of companies like Alibaba Group. And their cash reserves are enormous. So basically what they're doing now is they're buying market share all around the world. So people that say this cannot be sustainable, this cannot be profitable, of course not, because it's a phase where they're buying themselves into the market. And as far as we can see, they're doing really well with that KPI. And like I said, they will change some of the they will change some of the dials, and they will change the model until this whole thing will become profitable. Now, as far as the question is concerned about their ad spending, that is also entering a new phase, because in the start, what they do is they spend enormous amounts of money on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Google to get people to know the brand, download the app, and start buying. They also, which you don't see, is the part that they subsidize in the prices, which will also go down. So in many countries, they have now reached a phase where most of the people already have the app. So they're not doing as much customer acquisition anymore as they used to do. And that's why you see their marketing budget go down. It will overall, globally, will stay the same. It was $3 billion last year, $3 billion. It will also be $3 billion this year, but they have opened up new markets. So in the markets where they are already active, they will be decreasing, and it will go in waves, but because they will keep twisting those dials depending on what they're trying to accomplish. But overall, the marketing spend will go down, but the marketing budget will stay the same, because they're moving into a retention phase where they're trying to get people to continue buying on the app. So that's not so much done by advertising, but by giving all kinds of discounts and subsidies in the app. So, and that's the thing that you, of course, don't see. So it looks like they're dialing down, but they're simply shifting budgets towards new goals.
Interesting. If you're talking about, I mean, this is really something. I'm just putting all these arguments that I get from the market to you, because people are saying, they're going to run out of money, or people are not interested in that kind of thing. Yeah, of course they are, obviously. And the other thing that I keep hearing, and I'm sure you will shoot this down very quickly as well, is legal options for European countries. I mean, there are several European countries pushing for legal registration on Temu imports in some form, maybe via taxes, like South Africa has now applied higher taxes for imports by Temu, or higher logistic fees, or a stronger control regarding European regulation laws, which Temu products are frequently breaking, of course. So what do you think about that? Do countries have legal options to deal with Temu, and will that make any kind of impact?
Yeah, first of all, like you said, unfortunately, people keep buying this rubbish. Again, it's not, I mean, I bought about 20 articles myself by now on Temu, and about maybe 8 were not good, but there were also some very good products in there. So that's something that they definitely should figure out how to do better. But people keep buying this because, and that's cheap. like I also said at Score and at K5, we have this consumption habit and this dopamine rush when we see a deal and we want to buy it. It's basically, shopping on Temu is the same as walking into an Action store. And you also buy all kinds of things that you really don't need, but it's so cheap that you cannot help yourself.
You can't resist,
Yeah, so that's one of the big problems. So the problem is not just the Chinese web shops, it's also our consumption behavior. But if we look at the web shops themselves, if we compare it, for instance, to TikTok Shop, TikTok Shop in the US is very focused on compliance, because TikTok by itself, the video app, is already under a magnifying glass. So they're very careful with everything they do. And if you talk to people from ByteDance, the company behind TikTok and Douyin in China, they say, well, we try to be very careful, but what Temu is doing is getting on the bus and buying the ticket later. So that means that they set up the website, they set up the payment systems, the logistics, the whole supply chain, and they will worry about playing by the rules later on. They will buy that ticket later. And that is something that, of course, is very threatening, because a lot of shoddy, low quality, and even dangerous goods are entering our markets, which is, as far as I'm concerned, is a real big problem. And we cannot deal with this because all of the custom organizations, they don't have the staff to check every package, right? So how are you going to do this? So I completely agree that we need to find a solution for this. It's got to be a real challenge. Banning a platform outright is maybe a bit too far. I think you should first figure out something else, because at the end of the day, we live in an open market economy. So we shouldn't discriminate. There should be a level playing field, but a level playing field is a level playing field for everybody, right? for our companies and for the Chinese companies. If you look at their marketing tricks, something that I also often say is they're really not doing anything that we haven't done before. So they are subsidizing these prices instead of giving a very clear, transparent discount. So you could say that this is probably unethical. But I used to work for an office supply company that used to do exactly the same thing. They sent prospects a catalog with prices that were heavily discounted without the customer knowing. And as soon as they started buying, then they would get the catalog with the regular higher prices. So we've been fooling, and I'm not specifically talking about me or you ladies, but we have also pulled all kinds of marketing tricks. And of course, we have become more critical about that. And we should be as critical as we are to ourselves and with our own legislation to companies like Temu as well. But at the same time, if you look at Booking.com is doing the same tricks. We only have 2 hotel rooms left. Buy within a certain couple of minutes, etc., etc. Those kinds of tricks. You see Temu using these same tricks. If that is not according to our legislation, they should be fined or punished in some way. What is happening at the same time is now that they go into this new phase, they are spending more people and staff on compliance. So we just need to keep pushing them to comply. But if we just want to ban them because they're like a very annoying new competitor from China, that for me is not reason enough.
No.
So I think we will have to assume that they will start playing by the rules better, and that they are just a part of the new reality. And something I always also say is that if you look at what happened in China when Pinduoduo started, all of the Chinese internet platforms laughed at them. They said, this is a business model. It's never going to work. Nobody's going to buy that rubbish. And then people started doing that. And then within a couple of years, Pinduoduo IPO'd that had taken all of the other companies much longer to do. And then they actually thought, well, maybe we should pay attention to what's happening here. And they started studying Pinduoduo. And now they are trying to become more like Pinduoduo. So first they laughed, then they studied, and now they want to be Pinduoduo. So the reason that I say that is we should definitely we should not underestimate these guys and what they're capable of. And back to the cash reserves that they have, even though they are spending so much money on Temu, their cash reserves in China are still rising because they're doing so well inside China.
Right. So to sum this up, they're not going to run out of money. Customers are not going to stop buying that stuff because it's so cheap and nice and fills all our dopamine levels to a high extent. And Temu is probably not going away in Europe, and regulations and laws and whatever might help a little bit to even the playing field, but that might take quite a while. So what do we do? What do brands and retailers then do with this new competitor? How do we deal with it?
Well, it depends a bit on what you're currently doing. I think if you're a drop shipment company, it will be very difficult to compete with Temu because you're basically just an additional middleman that's not necessary in the Temu model, because Temu is that only middleman in their basically whole chain. So that's probably the first ones that will disappear if you're doing nothing more than shipping a package, or not even doing that yourself, but you're not adding any value. You're simply moving boxes, so to speak. Then I see a very dark future for you. Also because, well, like I said, AliExpress is rejuvenating their business. TikTok Shop might be coming in a few months.
Yeah, but to be fair, those box movers already had a bad lookout on the future ever since Amazon started FBA, I would say.
Correct. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then so there's more and more like of these companies coming our way. So if we try to compete on just price, we're not going to win that, because the Chinese companies, because of their integration with the supply chain, will always do better on price. So we have to be better on quality. We have to be better on unique products. that people are also willing to pay for. We have to be better on service. And that's, of course, we have to be better on the difficult part of e-commerce, right? If I, for instance, look here in the Netherlands, I don't know if you're familiar with Coolblue.
Yes.
Yes. Coolblue, they're not the best as far as price is concerned, but they have so much advice and service, and they help you pick the right products. And if you have a problem, then they don't make a big deal, and they help you out. It's things like these that will probably protect them for the time being. But if you're simply just moving a product without adding anything else, then I think it could be quite a difficult future.
Mm-hmm. Right. I did want to end this episode on a more lighter note, I tried.
Let's get back to Chinese food.
Yes, Chinese food, very good idea.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I really didn't want to depress everybody that is listening to this. But like I said also in the keynotes, we have not been paying attention. And it's really time that we wake up.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Valerie, any more questions, or are you?
Yeah, plenty, but not more time.
Not more time. Yeah, that's the problem.
So maybe we set up a new one up with you, Ed.
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah, we might have to do part 2 on this, maybe
Part 2,
in half a
or
year
about
something.
Shein, to be very honest. That's
Or
also
about
what
Shein.
I thought.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, they're working on their IPO, so that's also going to be. So, and one of the reasons, by the way, why they are pushing their IPO and maybe doing that in London, is the competition with Temu, because currently it's the parties that are competing most with each other at this moment is the Chinese companies, the Chinese platforms among themselves.
Each other. Yeah, that might be. In the end, one of the saviors might be another Asian company that is keeping Temu in check.
Correct. Yeah.
Anyway, right. So, Ed, thank you very, very much for your insights. That was very, very, very enlightening. Not always very optimistic, but very enlightening nonetheless. And I hope all of our listeners are now set up for future Temu discussions and are in the state of waking up, as Ed said several times now, because I think it's high time. I, for my part, have learned a lot. What about you, Valerie?
Definitely. I mean, I got like a first intro already at the score. Maybe next week at K5 again. This was also, quite enlightful and woke up definitely more up. So thank you for the insights, Ed.
Yeah, so, maybe I can give 2 more suggestions.
Yes.
To wake up and stay awake. Like we discussed, I write these really in-depth reports for TechBuzz China. I think I sent you a couple of these reports as examples. It's not free. It's a paid newsletter, but we do these reports that have lots of detail that you won't find anywhere else. So we don't just do them about e-commerce, but also about electric vehicles, apps, etc., etc. So TechBuzz China, if people really want to keep an eye on what's happening in China, that's something that I would definitely recommend them to check out. Another thing is, and I can probably say that by now because K5 has already happened, is one of the study tours that I'm doing, we're going to do together with K5. So people that are listening and are interested in coming along can actually join that tour. And it will be a combination of master classes that me and the other guys that are the other experts that are joining will be doing in the morning, and actually going to places to experience a lot of this Chinese e-commerce innovation themselves. So do keep an eye out for that as well.
That sounds interesting. When do you do this?
We will do this, I don't know the exact date, but I think it's the last week of October. So it's the last week of October that runs into November.
Okay.
And we will announce it next Tuesday. So
Great.
Okay, we'll definitely have a look out for that one.
Yeah.
Right. So
what do we do next, Ingrid?
Next week, we will be joined by Stefanie Holzelwimmer, an old acquaintance of mine, marketplace person that has been keeping in contact with me for quite a while, and now it's finally happening that she's coming to the podcast because she is responsible for the marketplace D2C business of the Bosch Group, Bosch Home Comfort Group, and she will talk about how you can manage to do your marketplace business or learn your marketplace business with something like an internal D2C department inside a huge company. That's going to be interesting there. And in 2 weeks' time, we're back in English and we reconnect with my main source for the most reliable Amazon rumors in the industry, Malte Karstan, and we'll debate Amazon's latest AI plans with him.
Okay, sounds both like a great plan. Be sure to tune in and like and subscribe. Follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter if you haven't done so far on www.marketplace-universe.com/newsletter. So you don't miss out any of our episodes and insights.
Yes, you do that. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You listen to Let's Talk Marketplace,
The Marketplace podcast with Ingrid Lommer and Valerie Dichtel.